Unlike the other games, this one requires us to start with a robot monster who has a good weapon to allow us to proceed, due to the Proto-Man fights. So I picked Shadow Man for a Shadow Blade and a free Proto-Man fight, rather than Needle Cannon and early access to Rush Jet. Well, yeah, Needle Cannon's effective against Snake Man, but also Shadow Blade does 2 damage to Snake Man per hit. This stage starts off with a few drops, with a new Shotman, some little frog robots, and a Pickle Man ball right before the very first Proto-Man fight in this game. Here's what he can be harmed with for reference, since it'll be very important later. Past him are a few corridors and drops that enter the blackout segment, where it becomes harder to navigate while walking bombs sprint toward us. So remember where they spawn so then you can preemptively shoot them. The lights come back on, and we need to cross over a few pits. Now don't be impatient, since the parachute guys will take 3 levels to destroy it and will cause you a bunch of trouble, so bait their spawns by doing some feint jumps. Now past the boss door, you will see the absolute mayhem of Shadow Man's randomness and constant reaction time tests. Alright, time to fight Shadow Man without. Just spam Shadow Blade, please. Well, at this point, this is just gonna be a blooper reel of me constantly fucking dying to Shadow Man. The game decided to make me do a slide when I wanted to jump!
Fucking raw!
There we go, I finally caught him! A weapon that has 56 uses, can be aimed in 5 directions and boomerangs back if it doesn't hit an enemy. Pretty good due to the amount of ammo and how many enemies it can destroy quickly. That was a whole load of shit. This one starts off with a bunch of erratic jumpy enemies and a bunch of potato snakies who fire fast bullets. Luckily, Shadow Blade one-shots all of these, because then you've got plenty to spare. Past the many snakies, you'll see the first big snake in the stage, which will go down in a few shadows. Okay, I just found a fucking glitch from Megaman 3. Okay, but now you'll have plunger, pole vaulters, a completely worthless glitch, but apparently if you have Shadow Blade, just press right to access Rush Jet by jumping over. But you get no ammo, so it's just a what the fuck moment. Just running out of the way of the little bombers. There's some Harajo's up ahead with ladders and 2 mystery tanks, but also the final big snaky of the stage. Now this final segment you need to be careful since these propeller spawning platforms have a little bug that can push you into pits if you stand on them wrong. So to avoid this, just do a small jump right before the little propellers spawn. Of course there's these little cloud enemies. Just hit them with one Shadow Blade, need to stop their erratic movement pattern, but make sure to try and hit them when they're like above your normal height, so they just zip by it. The Snake Man is a bit like Flashman, they kind of walk and jump around the terrain while occasionally delivering an attack. The Search Snake's Snake Man fires can be destroyed, but if you're going to go and take a hit, it's better to take a dash from the Search Snakes that do 4 damage rather than Snake Man who does 6 damage to you. Jump over him enough times and he'll go down. A weapon with 56 uses that summons floor crawling and wall climbing snakes that do very little damage, but has a good amount of ammo. A pair of ladders to climb, then a good patience test to introduce some gimmicks. There's a Hammer Joe guarding the second main stage gimmick, which can be scary to experience for the first time. After the descent, there are junk blocks, which we could just speed through it to save time and ammo. Now this final segment is painful, so these non-bolt enemies are immune to all damage until they start moving, which can be annoying to speed through since they are scattered almost everywhere. So try to pick them off one by one while being careful with the rising platform gimmick. Sparkman himself will jump around the room in a pattern of 5 jumps, while occasionally creating a set of 8 tiny sparks before launching a Mega Spark Shock right at you. Now Spark Shock, the least useful weapon in the run, 28 uses that fires a sparking ball that stuns enemies it hits. one of my mains in V classes and favorite from this game, but anyway, the stun is pretty simple as it's just a bunch of pits and a few magflies. Just trying to let them fly by, but don't let them pull you away too much. After those guys, Proman is back for round 2, although 14 Shadow Blades will just deal with him. There we go. Now we have these big boppers who fire a homing missile from their head, but go down in a few Shadow Blades. Then, more magnets ensue. Most of this game is Yoku blocks, just like the last 2 games, but I've done this one a few times and I find this Yoku block segment way easier compared to the last 2 games. Now as those magnets are passed, a new Shotman in from Shadowman's stage appears guarding a few pickups. Of course, past him is another big bopper guarding the boss door. Now Magnet Man goes down very quickly with his weakness, so I don't really have much time to explain his pattern here. Magnet Missile has 14 uses, and these missiles turn 90 degrees once they are above or beneath their target. Not crazy value, but an alright backup and seeking weapon. So I've got no other choice than to go to Hardman. A pretty flat start, although with the lack of Mega Buster and Neocan, it does suck since you can't easily clear the massive swarm of bees, as they're immune to Surge Snake. The stage is pretty boring, so it's sped up by quite a lot. There's a Hammer Joe that we need to take out, and then the next room contains some monkeys. Bullet spamming mats. The last room before Protoman, which is a lot of bear traps in that, which I also discovered a little thing I didn't know about the game until this point. Alright, Protoman time. Huh. I didn't notice that you could actually listen to a full version of Protoman's whistle theme if you pressed the pause button right before Protoman spawned. Now Hardman himself is simple but annoying. He'll fire both his rocket fists that relocate toward your position, while Hardman does a big jump toward you and freezes the screen upon contact with the floor. Rinse and repeat. "14 uses can break open certain barriers, can be slightly steered up or down, and is effective on a few bosses. Although freezing in place to launch the attack is quite risky. This one starts off with a bunch of Harry-Harrys that fire 2 sets of 5 spikes before rolling, so it's best to dodge the spikes if you don't have Shadow Blade ready, but past here is a descent with a long segment full of armored cannons, mets, fireflies, and enemies all around. Now this enclosed area has needle pokers that once spawned will repeat their pattern by going down and back up. So if you spawned a bunch of them in a bad pattern, that is unfortunate. Although this small segment is a good reaction time test, since the needles only damage when they're fully extruded. In this room, a Harry from earlier is here, alongside an E-tank on a higher up ledge. It's pretty easy to fumble in this small room, but also there are 2 hammer drills in the stage's boss door up ahead. Needleman himself is a mix of things, sure he's got the rapid fire while in the air like Megaman does, and he jumps toward you while having a powerful needle poker attack on close. Thing is, he can fire a total of 2 or even 4 needles per jump. But of course, whenever he does the needle poke attack, make sure to jump over him, but also be ready to slide or move afterward, because Needleman will most likely jump after his attacks. "112 uses from this weapon." Also, we get the first and most powerful iteration of Rush Jet in the series, which is pretty much free flight. AKA the guy who soft-locked my first attempt at this. This game's gonna be like that now. Okay, so Surge Snake doesn't work, Spark Shock doesn't work, the Shadow Blades go through the eggs and don't damage them whatsoever, that's just strange. And Magnum Missile doesn't damage them either. Despite the mood the mixer gives right now, I want you to know that this stage can't be beaten without one of 2 weapons. Either the Mega Buster or the Needle Cannon due to the pole egg segment you saw a little bit earlier, being immune to or even having other weapons phase right through them. Aside from that, this does a bunch of annoying UFOs and pin bombers that can be dealt with somewhat easily, but it's a long segment. Of course, you could decide to grab the extra life I did by using Rush Bow, or use Rush Jet if you're not too familiar with the jump. Either way, the pole eggs are pretty easy to navigate, but you gotta be careful with your needle cannon ammo, because if you don't have any needle cannon ammo, you may as well restart. That maze was a challenge and could have been managed better, but now we encounter two large pen makers that can be jumped over with Rush Jet. The pit below awaits. A checkpoint that has some health to recover as the most difficult part of the stage is up next. Have a look at it for yourself to see, as it's quite a big one. Now, Gemini Man is a difficult boss to get the hang of since there's two bosses running around. The thing is, the moment you press the attack button, one of the clones will fire. So, you have to time your shots. But also, once he goes down to half health, one of his clones will disappear, and you'll just walk around, jumping around whenever you press the fire button, and occasionally firing his Gemini laser. I don't have much on this weapon aside from it has 14 uses and can bounce off walls, useful against bosses that are weak to it. Alright, and the final robot master of the 8 that I'm doing, Top Man, which is kind of ironic because I usually do this guy first. Right from the start, there's a bunch of enemies being spammed, so we just gotta run through it. A big top guy is waiting in the next room alongside another segment below where an extra life is and a bunch of pickleballs scattered about. A few mets right before one of the two mini-bosses of the stage. A checkpoint before a big top guy and another mini-boss. Now the last bit of the stage, with a dickhead mountaineer spikes, the last big top guy in his own maze, and finally a section full of rising and descending top-shaped platforms before the boss door. So Topman himself throws 3 tops, becomes invincible, then spins toward you. That's the power. Easy to learn and easy to dodge. This weapon is very buggy. It's the first of its kind, but it's still unsafe to use on enemies that get taken out in one hit by it, or some Wily Fortress bosses that don't have immunity frames. Otherwise, use with caution, or else your ammo bar will disappear in a blink. Now with Topman down, the Dock Robot stations appear. I'll deal with those next time, so I'll see you around.